Hello, this is Brian Scuttle with Sonic Cinema. My summer movie watching is over, and with two-thirds of the year gone, it's time to look forward into the fall, into the Oscar season. There are a lot of really promising and fantastic films along the way. But I want to sort of take a look back at not just this summer, but really this year, as far because I didn't really do that for the first half of the year. So, for this has been a really interesting year. It's been a really exciting year. There have been some really good highs. There have been some really disappointing films along the way. But overall, it's been a pretty exciting year. One of the big things that has helped that is me covering the Atlanta Film Festival back in April. And I'm really grateful for that because it gave me the opportunity to see a lot of smaller films that I may not have necessarily gotten to in theaters. And that was certainly the case with a couple of really terrific summer movies that came and went in theaters. Unfortunately, my schedule did not allow me to go see them in theaters and support them in theaters. But Lulu Wang's The Farewell, which I saw at the Atlanta Film Festival, was still one of my absolute favorites of the year, with a terrific performance by Aquafina. Them That Follow, which is about Pentecostal snake handlers, a community of Pentecostal snake handlers. And that is one of the very best films I've seen all year. It's a film that looks at a very particular faith, and it's a really interesting film on faith and how reality sometimes and how the real world sometimes gets in the way of gets in the way of and makes you really reconfigure how you're thinking about the world when it comes to your faith. They're really fantastic performances with Olivia Colman, Walton Goggins, and Caitlin Dever, whose other film this summer, Booksmart, I unfortunately did not see. I didn't get a chance to see that. I will definitely be making a point of that sooner rather than later as the fall comes along. But Them That Follow is definitely a film that I would highly recommend, especially if you're interested in different stories about faith and religious ideas that don't necessarily follow the evangelical film industry idea, like something like Breakthrough, which I saw earlier this year. And Them That Follow and Breakthrough actually had some kind of interesting compares and contrasts, and I happened to see them both relatively close together. Those were interesting to consider, and it's funny because movies like Breakthrough and The Other Side of Heaven 2, which I did not think was a good movie, they both had interesting stories in them, but they weren't necessarily the main story. So I think that's something that even if you scoff at the idea of these faith-based movies, I mean there's certainly a lot to scoff about. Uh, if you really go in them with an open, objective mind, you can see something interesting in them. And both of those films had something to offer. I think my favorite film this year is so far Blind by the Light, and it really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the fact that it's about a Pakistani kid in London, in England in the 1980s, who is inspired to write because of his love for Bruce Springsteen, his discovery and his love of Bruce Springsteen's music. It's something. It's just that basic idea of what inspires us to create, what inspires us to follow a dream that we weren't sure if we were allowed to follow. And I think Blind by the Light captures that perfectly. It's got wonderful cast. It's got a soundtrack with the boss that is just fantastic. That part really does make it one of my favorite movies in the past few years, and probably my favorite movie of the year. Even more so than How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, which I thought was a fantastic capper to that trilogy. Um, this is really an interesting year as far as sequels. There are some that have been really, really good, like Avengers Endgame, like How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, and I would even say Godzilla King of the Monsters was a really fun one. But then you also have Man in Black International, which was kind of dull. You have other ones like Hobbs and Shaw, which is a spin-off, but it's not that great. There are actually some really good sequels that have come out this year. Lego Movie 2, the second part, Spider-Man Far From Home, Toy Story 4 was really surprisingly good. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum was a lot of fun. It was fun really watching that franchise in the span of a week, actually, and then going into the third one and being really entertained by it. And Annabelle Come Home, even. I that was another one where it's like I saw the sequel. I saw the previous one shortly before, like the night before watching Annabelle Comes Home, and it was night and day different. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one of the other movies that I really hate that I've missed this year so far. That's going to be another early one like Booksmart. I'm going to get to that one as soon as I can. And I'll definitely have thoughts on that on Sonic Cinema. Us, Jordan Peele, is definitely one of the best original movies of the year. This is a really good year for me as far as documentaries, watching documentaries. My favorite one so far is Be Natural, which is about the first female filmmaker and from the silent era, and it's a movie really about trying to reclaim her position in film history, and you see why how she kind of got lost, and it's really unfortunate because you look at the stuff they show you clips of, and it's really wonderful stuff. Be Natural, if you're a film fan, if you're a fan of silent cinema, it's definitely one to check out. Cold Case Hammerskull was a wonderful true story mystery, a tragic true story mystery. Love Antosha is a wonderful tribute to Anton Yelchin, who passed away unfortunately. Mike Wallace's Here is a terrific insight into his career, for better or worse. The Lion King I was really disappointed in. It was probably the movie that's been the most disappointing for me this year. As far as horror, Midsommar, Ari Aster's new film, was really engaging, really kept me intrigued for its 2.5 hours. I'm curious. I don't know if I won't necessarily get to the director's cut this coming week, but I'm looking forward to maybe sometime seeing that, hopefully. And I do want to revisit the movie. I want to see how it plays on home video. That's definitely an interesting movie. Captain Marvel was really entertaining. I thought that was a terrific start for introduction to that character. Rocket Man was a wonderful biopic. It was the type of biopic that Bohemian Rhapsody should have been. And it's got terrific imagination. It's got really great acting. And I really liked it. I'm not a tremendous fan of Elton John, but I mean that movie really captured something that I thought was quite special in it. Aladdin is arguably the best of the Disney live-action remakes I've seen so far, which is really interesting to say. Dumbo just didn't really do much for me. Aladdin it's good, but it's not something that I'm going to necessarily watch again. Something I do definitely want to watch again is The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Terry Gilliam's dream project finally comes to the big screen, and I was really quite taken by what he finally put on screen. I've been a fan of Lost in La Mancha the documentary about the first time he tried to make it for years, and this really does stand on its own. And if you knew nothing about the story of what went into the making of Don Quixote, I think you would be even more impressed with it. I think there's really strong work by Am Driver and Jonathan Price in it, and it might be one of my favorite Terry Gilliam movies. It's just really well put together and really entertaining, and if you get a chance to watch it, I definitely recommend watching it. There's not a lot left that I really want to touch on as far as the summer. There are a lot of other movies that I've seen. You can check out sonic-cinema.com for a lot of those thoughts. I would also recommend Brie Larson's Unicorn Store, The Fourth Kingdom, which is a great feature-length documentary based on a short film documentary that I saw many years ago. If you get a chance to watch a film called Monos, it's a really challenging war film. I'm not as high on it as a lot of other people are, but I think it's quite worth seeing. Definitely if you get a chance to. The Danish film Afterlife is one of the best films I've seen this year. It is about a teenager who, a year after her mother dies, she finds herself dying, and she's given a choice as to whether she stays with her mother and her loved ones or goes back to live her life. And it's one of the most interesting stories. It reminded me a lot of Wings of Desire, remind me a lot of movies that deal with life and death and mortality, and how what that means, and what it means to be given that choice, and what we make of that choice. And it's really quite a wonderful film. I hope you get a chance to watch it. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. And another Danish film actually I cannot recommend enough is a science fiction film called Aniara, and it's based on a poem from the 50s, and it's really quite something. It's really quite poetic science fiction. It's something that really spoke to me, and I'm definitely looking forward to rewatching that, because I think that's a film that I might pick up and watch over and over. It reminded me a lot of 2001. It reminded me a lot of Solaris. It reminded me a lot of films that just really do something interesting with the subject that they do. And it's something that has stuck with me since I watched it in May. Another one is Speed of Life, which I saw at the Atlanta Film Festival, and that was a film that I got a chance to talk to the filmmaker. You can find that interview on the Sonic Cinema podcast, and it's something that's just really lovely to see. It basically takes the death of David Bowie as a significant moment in the main character's life, and because David Bowie meant a lot to her, and what happened in that moment. And it has a very simple science fiction premise, but it's the emotional aspect of that story that's really interesting. And so definitely Speed of Life, if you get a chance to watch it, I highly recommend it. I think that's all that I really have to say right now. I'll go through more. I'm still a member of the Georgia Film Critics Association, so that's going to be a big part, and hopefully I'll get a lot of screeners that I'll be able to catch up on some of these movies with. And that's it. That's it for me for now. Thank you very much. Dragon Con's coming up this weekend. I've got a lot of things that I'm wanting to do. Hopefully some things they'll get to do as far as the short film festival and all of that. And it's just going to be a fun weekend. I'm going to have a podcast as I always do. We're also going to continue on with the class of 1999. But for now, this is Brian Scuttle with Sonic-Cinema.com. Thank you very much.